So today we're gonna go ahead and go on to 7.5. So go ahead and follow along in your notes with me. You can use what you know about the word form of numbers to write decimals as fractions.
Use the least place, tenths, to write this decimal as a fraction. Then simplify if possible. The decimal 0.6 can be written as the fraction 3/5.
So I remember this because if this is in the tenths spot, that means it'll have 1 0. So you'll have 6 on top and 10 on the bottom. What they're doing is they're seeing that 6 and 10 are even, so they divide the 6 by 2 and the 10 by 2 to get 3/5 in simplest form.
Use the least place, hundredths, to write this decimal as a fraction. Then simplify if possible. The decimal 0.24 can be written as the fraction 6/25.
Okay, so here, again, the least spot is hundredths, so I know I'll need 2 zeros on the bottom. So 24 goes on top, and 100 will go on bottom. Now looking at those two numbers and thinking about my GCF, I know that 2 can come out, but a number bigger than 2 that can come out of 24 and 100 is 4. So they divide 24 by 4 to get 6, and 100 by 4 to get 25.
Use the least place, thousands, to write this decimal as a fraction. Then simplify if possible. The decimal 0.225 can be written as the fraction 9/40.
Okay, so again, we know that we'll have 1, 2, 3 zeros on the bottom, making it 1,000. And looking at this number, the GCF between 225 and 1,000 is 25. So you might be saying, well, could I just take 5 out first and then try and figure out what else can come out? Yes, but they found your GCF is 25. So to put this in simplest form, you get 9/40. This one says,
Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, surrounding the Kennedy Space Center, is a sanctuary for green turtles, bald eagles, Florida panthers, and hundreds of other animals. About 0 and 625,000ths of the total area of the refuge is water. What fraction of the total area is water?
okay, so I know that I have this much of the area is water. So I'm going to write that down. Okay, and I know I need to make it into a fraction. Well, in order to do that, you're going to have the same number on top, but you need to figure out if it's over 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. So I look and see how many zeros will I have. Well, to move my decimal over, I'll have 1, 2, 3 jumps, which means I'll have 1, 2, 3 zeros, and I have to put a 1 in front of that, so I'll have 1,000. Now, you might have to ask yourself, what can come out of both of these in order to put them in simplest form? Okay, they find that you can divide 625 divided by 5, or even bigger, the GCF is 125 between the two of these. So that'll simplify down to 5/8 of the total area is water. Go ahead and copy that in your notes, please. You can press pause to catch up, or you can go back to see what we just did. When you're done with that, I would like you to go on to this Got It and try it on your own. Here's what they say.
Virginia has a land and water area that is about 11,000ths of the total area of the United States. What fraction of the total area of the United States does Virginia make up?
So go ahead and write this in your notes and then put it in simplest form. I will be checking this and putting it into the grade tomorrow. And we're going to go ahead on to key concept. If you need to pause, please do so.
You can use what you know about fractions and division to write fractions as decimals. Write 3/4 as a decimal. The fraction bar means divide. Write the fraction as division. Place a decimal point in the dividend and write a 0 to the right of the decimal point.
So on your notes somewhere, I want you to take note that the bottom number always goes on the outside
as a placeholder. Begin dividing, writing a 0 in the ones place of the quotients as a placeholder, and placing the decimal point in the quotient. Write another 0 in the dividend as a placeholder so that you can complete the division. So 3/4 equals 75 hundredths.
On to part 2. Use long division to write each fraction as a decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do A. Let's do it together. So if I have 1/2, 2 goes on my outside and 1 goes on my inside. Now you might be saying, Miss S, 2 won't go into 1. Well, let's think about it. If we have a fraction is always less than 1, so that'll make sense. 2 goes into 1 0 times. Okay, now you know that you're going to have a decimal right here. Okay, because your decimal's after the 1, it'll go straight up. Okay, so then I have to add a 0. How many times will 2 go into 10? Oh, 5 times. 2 times 5 is 10, so I subtract 10 and I get 0. So when I use division to write each fraction as a decimal, I know that 2 goes on the outside, 1 on the inside. 1/2 is equal to 0.5 or 50 cents. I always like to think about halves as 50 cents or quarters. I'll let you do B, but let's try C together. So 40 will go on the outside, okay, and 29 goes on the inside. So go ahead and write this with me. Okay, so ask yourself, how many times does 40 go into 29? And the answer is 0 times, and your decimal goes right after that. Okay, so that means that 40 then goes into 290. Well, how many times? Well, I like to think about 4 times 7 is 28. That's probably close to 290. So let's go ahead and do that. So 40 times 7 is equal to 280. So I'm going to subtract 280. I get 0, 1, 10. Okay, I had to add a 0. Okay, bring that down. How many times will 40 go into 100? Twice. 40 times 2 is 80. I get 20 left. And add a 0. Bring it down. Well, how many times will 40 go into 200? That's kind of like 4 times 20, or 4 times what is 20? So I'm going to say 5 times. 40 times 5 is 200. I subtract 200 and I get 0. Okay, so 0.725 is the correct answer. I can check my work by multiplying 40 times this number to see if it equals this number, because multiplication and division are inverse operations. Okay, on your notes today, I would like you to go ahead and try B. Okay, try B, show your work, circle your answer so I know that that is your answer. And we are going to go on to the next page. If you need to freeze, go back, rewind, now is your time to do so. These need to be in your notes. They want you to use use division to write 3/5 as a decimal. So since you did the last problem, I'll help you with this one. 5 will go on the outside. 3 goes on the inside. Now 5 does not go into 3, which is okay because 3/5 is a fraction less than 1. So, put my decimal there. How many times will 5 go into 30? Well, 5 times 6 is 30. Okay, if I subtract 30, 30 minus 30 is 0. So my answer is 6/10. Again, that needs to be in your notes. So now, how can you write 3/5 as a decimal without using division? I want you to think about that and maybe have one sentence or show me a way on your notes, and I will check that tomorrow. Okay, maybe just write a sentence of what your thoughts are on it. And we're going to go on to part 3.
Some fractions have decimal forms that repeat without end. You can use rounding to approximate these decimals.
So they want you to write 2/3 as a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth. Step 1 is to write the fraction just like we've been doing with division.
Write the fraction as division.
Okay. Step 2.
Place a decimal point in the dividend and write a 0 in the tenths place as a placeholder.
Just like we've been doing.
Begin dividing.
So they're going to go through. 3 goes into 20 6 times, minus 18 is 2, bring down your 0. 3 goes into 20 6 times, minus 18 equals 2, bring down your 0. Same thing's happening every single time. So what they do is the decimal's repeating. You know 6 is bigger than 5, so they round the decimal to 0.67. Again, they round because these 6's are just going to continue on and on.
Lake Superior contains about 1/9 of the world's fresh surface water. Write 1/9 as a decimal, round it to the nearest hundredth.
Okay, so I'm going to divide 9 divided by 1.0. Again, I know that 9 won't go into 1, so I'm going to put a 0 and bring my decimal up. 9 goes into 10 once, minus 9 equals 1. Add a 0, bring it down. 9 goes into 10 once, minus 9 equals 1. So you're seeing a pattern continue, which means 9 goes into 10 once, minus 9 equals 1. We can round this. So if I have 0.11, I need to look at this 1 and say, okay, is 1 greater than 5 or less than 5? And it's less than 5, so I'm going to round it to 0.10. Again, I'm rounding that to a 0.10, sorry, because this 1 is less than 5.
The average depth of Lake Michigan, the second largest Great Lake, is about 4/7 of the average depth of Lake Superior. Write 4/7 as a decimal, rounded to the nearest hundredth.
So what I would like you to do for this one is try it on your own. This is the last problem you have to do. So it's going to be 7 divided by 4.0. Okay, I want you to try this in your notes. Remember, that's a 4. It looks like a 9. I'm sorry. Okay, try it in your notes. I will be collecting it tomorrow. Okay, remember that you need to round it to the nearest hundredth.